Next chapter is chapter 7, so let's get started. Pictures of a Life. This chapter contains over a dozen photographs of Chris's life, from a photograph of his mother, to his chance meeting with Nelson Mandela, to his 2 children. Union Square. Union Square is in District 3, near the northeast corner of San Francisco, next to the Tenderloin, south of Market Street in the Financial District. The year, 1976. He has been in San Francisco for 2 years. A middle-aged man told them that San Francisco is the Paris of the Pacific. Although Chris was 22 years old, he has never been to Paris, but he agreed with that man. The sky was blue and a warm breeze was rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. This was the height of San Francisco's culture scene. He felt as though he was living in a foreign country. There were music clubs, restaurants, bookstores, head shops, colorful and alive, crazy street scene. When he arrived at the West Coast, Chris was giving a lecture. At the time, there were residents of the YMCA. One person takes a shower, the other 2 watches his back. Bill introduced Chris to a air quote seminar. This turned out to be Jim Jones' People's Temple Cult. Fortunately, Chris did say something that was inappropriate to them, so they were kicked out. A few years later, the incident with that cult happened in Guyana. Due to his experiences during childhood, Chris knew he has to be in complete control of his life, and that saved him from ending up like the rest of the cult. He also resisted drugs and alcohol. Granted, he did try some of the straight drugs, however, he never let it control him. Instead, he walked north to Chinatown, joined the dancers and was happy. Farther north, he went to North Beach. There he heard an electric band making music. Music was not only mind-altering, it was also mind-blowing, so he returned back to the Tenderloin district, realizing that this isn't his thing. His major focus was the laboratory, doing work for Dr. Ellis. If he wanted to become a doctor, he would open up that world to Chris. This project was a collaboration between the Veterans Administration Hospital and the University of California at San Francisco Hospital. This was between Golden Gate Park and K-SAR Stadium. At the VA, his job was to create a laboratory that stimulates what happens during open heart surgery. They were investigating how much potassium is needed to best preserve high-energy phosphates in heart muscles. Dr. Ellis introduced Chris to Rayburn, nicknamed Rip Jackson. He was a medical scientist / technician genius. Although he wasn't as racist as the people back east, he did let slip words that confirmed Chris's suspicion that he was a bigot. When Rip realized that Chris was quick to understand what he was being told, Rip did respect Chris. Rip was great at building a laboratory, taught Chris how to run the lab. His technical expertise was the same as a top surgeon, and Rip trained Chris in this highly specialized area. Their job was to excise hearts, to catheterize blood vessels, and suturing, ordering office equipment, supplies, to administering anesthesia, performing biopsies of hearts, and analyzing results. The third person on his team was Gary Campagna. Gary has finesse. Gary had memorable sayings to emphasize certain techniques, from grating veins to what kind of graft would be needed depending on the condition of the vein. Chris's game plan, learn as much as you can from these 3 people, get a college education, then off to medical school. It wasn't just the status and money that surgeons make that caught Chris's attention. He wanted challenge, quest for information, opportunity to apply his focus that seemed like a foreign language. Once he learns that language, no one at the Veterans Administration and University Hospital knew that he hadn't been to medical school. With Dr. Ellis, Chris co-wrote several papers that were published in medical journals and textbooks. Where his colleagues had the book smarts, Chris had hands-on skills. There were also bigotry involved. He was the only black person among all white interns. When Dr. Ellis told his interns that Chris was in charge, they did not like it, and they were arrogant. Whenever they didn't want to learn from Chris, or they weren't willing to try, all Chris had to do, snitch to Dr. Ellis, and Dr. Ellis fired them. It was times like these that he remembered his mother's words. No one can take your legitimacy away from you, and no one can give you legitimacy if you don't claim it for yourself. When he apologized to his mother for not getting a college degree, she reminded him the only degree he needed was from God. By this, she was referring to self-knowledge, an authentic belief system, an inner sense that cannot be affected by the outside world. This gave him the confidence that he could succeed at anything he puts his mind to, as success was everything to Chris. However, two barriers. Although he got a pay increase, it did not go above $13,000 a year. The other was a personal relationship. To help him with the latter, he called his long-distance girlfriend Sherry. By then, she had earned a master's degree, worked as an educational expert in mathematics. From that phone call, they set the date for their wedding, June 18th. The first 3 years were the honeymoon phase. The wedding was at her parents' house. His mom was also in attendance, and she was proud. Part of Chris's attraction was belonging to her world, growing up with both parents in a loving and stable family environment. Her parents saw Chris's potential to become a doctor. First, he told Dr. Ellis he was getting married. Next, he went to a jewelry store to buy a wedding ring. When Sherry arrived, they embraced, and she took over the wedding planning. Her father paid the full cost of the nuptials. When she saw the ring, she told him that it wasn't the cut she wanted. Upon seeing where he was living, she insisted that they move out there as soon as possible. Soon after, she found a place for them, for both of them to live on Hay Street. It was a third floor walk-up with hardwood floors, bay windows, French doors. She decorated their apartment with potted plants, nice brass bed, wicker rocking chair, stylish couch, new cookware, and serving pieces. In the kitchen, she cooked soul food. Next, she found a place on Baker. It was a Victorian building, 5 rooms of sunlight. Her lifestyle included theater, comedy, social gatherings with a fascinating intellectual conversation. Nights were filled with comedy clubs, dinner parties with serious and creative crowd. He gravitated toward 3 people: Barry Henley, Danny Glover, and Samuel L. Jackson. Sadly, within the first 2 years of marriage, things started to unravel. He felt something is missing. He was trying to ignore or run away from his problems. These problems ranged from their dislikes and likes. She was conservative, where he preferred to sing, dance, sob out loud, speak in tongues, have dialogues with the preacher and God at the same time, and catch the spirit in dramatic ways. Although he enjoyed going to church with Sherry, he missed the loudness and the wildness, and she did not like his friend Garvin. Their marriage turned out to be too structured, too orderly, too rigid. By that time, she was expecting. Chris got a second job, since his job at that time only paid $16,000 a year. Sadly, she had a miscarriage during the first trimester, but they were not deterred. He got a second job as a security guard, working the graveyard shift. Sherry quickly noticed that Chris was spending less and less time at home, and more of his waking hours doing odd jobs here and there. Toward the end of 1979, Chris finally broke down, gave Sherry the bad news. He no longer wants to be a doctor. And it's not just the fact that it's going to take him 10 years to become a doctor. By this time, 1970s, medical field is changing. By the time he finally does become a doctor, everything will be completely different. HMOs will slash doctors' salaries in the coming decades. So rather than several $1,000s per patient, they'll only be paid a few $100s per patient. Also, private health insurance will cover less medical care. And the focus will be on non-invasive procedures. So bureaucracies will create fee structures, and Chris had to learn what Dr. Ellis had to say. Not surprisingly, Sherry was disappointed. Even though he never told Sherry about the fact that he did cheat on her during their marriage, she saw his reaction to a woman named Jackie, and at that moment, their marriage was over. So questions, comments, constructive criticisms, ask for clarification, let me know. and then in a couple of days I will go over the next chapter. Take care.